Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be taking another look at Project R, the port of San Francisco Rush, as well as Rush 2049 to modern PCs and Steam Deck. I've done a video both on the original San Francisco Rush, the Rock Alcatraz Edition port, as well as Rush 2049, and these are some of the best arcade racing games ever made. While both of them emulate perfectly in the MAME emulator, having a modern port with high frame rate 16:9 graphical improvements and every other quality of life feature you would want is absolutely outstanding, and the developer on this has done an 11 out of 10 job as far as these games are concerned. But I've been getting a lot of questions on how to set this one up, so we're going to do an arcade emulation tutorial even if we actually aren't emulating anything. Before we get far involved though, to be a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. And if you're wondering whether or not the AI is as ruthless in these ports as it is in the arcade original, it 100% is, because this is exactly the same gameplay you get out of the arcade original, just on modern PC. And I can't stress enough just how incredible of port work this truly is. These games have never been this good, not in their arcade original versions, not in any of their ports. This is, in my opinion, the one and only way to play San Francisco Rush as well as Rush 2049, unless you want to go back in and experience the original graphics and gameplay style of the arcade originals or the Nintendo 64 ports or anything else like that. Of course, Rush 2049 came out on Dreamcast, as did Nintendo 64, but again, the arcade original, even in MAME, is still the de facto way to play, in my opinion, over those ports. And now with Project R, we have an even better version of this game. Because again, just look how incredible this footage is, the fluidity and smoothness in the overall gameplay, and the best part is because it is a port, it's adhered to the overall physics and handling system of what you would expect out of San Francisco Rush, because these two games have a very distinct feel, and if that had changed in any way, shape, or form, it would not be as good of a game as the arcade originals. But the team and people behind Project R, all of the testers and devs, have 100% nailed this thing, absolutely no issues whatsoever. That's amazing, because I'm sure that was no easy feat. Now, if we go over to the Project R website, you'll be able to get all the information here and all the details of exactly what's going on. And you'll see there is a list of asset requirements, both for the original San Francisco Rush, the Rock, as well as 2049. You're going to have the right files in the right places for these to run. You're going to have the CHD files for both Rush 2049 as well as the original Rush, and then the ROMs as well as a few sound ROMs to get everything running. I'll go over everything you need, but it is listed here, and as far as where you find that, you are on your own. That is something I cannot help you with here, but it is relatively easy to find these things. If you know how to Google things, you should be totally fine. And once you get all the files in their appropriate places, you can play Rush 2049 and San Francisco Rush or the Alcatraz Edition on your PC with any sort of controller or wheel you want. You have analog dead zone variables. I'll get into all the controls once we actually get this thing running on your system, because trust me, the amount of quality of life improvements and control modifications you can do really allow you to make this the Rush experience that you want to have. So if you take a look at the page again, you're going to see the computer requirements. So long as your potato isn't starting to mold, you should be totally fine here. You do have to have a dedicated GPU or something that's integrated with Vulkan 1.2, and you'll see here, as far as the input methods are concerned, you can use a gamepad, but I'm using a wheel for this one, a Logitech G29. It will support force feedback, so you can kind of play around however you want. And the best part is this does work on Steam Deck as well. Just follow the Steam Deck section if you need help with that. But the first thing you need to do is actually download the executable so we can get everything set up. And you will see here, you do have to have within the San Francisco Rush zip file these 4 audio ROMs, U61, 49, 62, and 53, else you won't get audio. Speaking of which, this is what it should sound like if you have those audio ROMs. Listen, I'll be right back. So just make sure that you have those audio ROMs within your San Francisco Rush zip file when you're actually trying to run this, or else you're not going to get any sort of audio going on. Now you'll see here, if you just double click the executable, it's going to be very easy. You're just going to hit next. If you want to create a desktop shortcut, you're going to be able to do so, but it's like installing any other program, with one caveat here that I want to make sure you're aware of, and I'm sure most of you already have this, but if we take a look here, it's going to talk about the Visual C++ redistribution. You do need to have that on your system, the 2015 to 2022 version of it, but if you've been playing any sort of games on Steam or any sort of ports to PC from console, you probably already have that, but definitely make sure you do. Now when you first enter into the actual program, you're going to have the settings for Project R in and of themselves. You can do text language. This is where you're going to get your controls for as far as what you're controlling it with and how you're setting up all of those different dead zones. By default, I honestly think that everything controls perfectly fine as far as my wheel is concerned, or if I'm using the Xbox Series X controller sometimes. But if you want to play around with those analog dead zones or any of the analog steering, you can dial everything in. So depending on what controller or wheel you're using, if something feels slightly off or you want to modify it, you want to do that in the actual Project R menu where you can play around with all of the controls. So kind of just go ahead and do whatever you'd like, and if you want to use a clutch and some sort of shifter as well, you're able to do that. By default it isn't on, but you can kind of play around. Now on the display option here, you have windowed, full screen, and full screen window, and you can set whatever custom resolution you want. I capture this at just 1080p because 4K honestly on YouTube doesn't really seem to be worth it, but you can do ultra wide on this, you can do 4:3, anything you want, and you can even scale the interface and change the heads up display position to accommodate for either 16:9 or 4:3. It should auto adhere to whatever aspect ratio you use. And you can see here, you can even increase or decrease the draw distance, the anti-aliasing, or the anisotropic filtering. Although those two do require you to restart the system as far as the executable is concerned, but it is very quick. Now you'll see we also have game setting options for both San Francisco Rush the Rock as well as 2049. Drive the Past is Rush and Drive the Future is 2049. So whatever options these boards would have in their arcade original format will be here. You can set the difficulty for all of the tracks and everything else in Rush, and then on 2049 you're going to have a couple extra options that weren't available. So just remember that you have to set the options for each individual game, and you're going to want to do those in the Project R menu before you actually launch them. And there is even a cheat modifier system for 2049. Haven't really played around with it too much, but once you're ready, you have the executable and all of those files in the same folder. Just go ahead and hit start and it should boot up fine. It might ask you where those files are, so just follow any on-screen prompts, but if you do everything right, you're going to be into both San Francisco Rush as well as 2049 without any issues whatsoever. Just remember, as I showed you on the screen earlier, you can pause it to get the right files that are listed on the Project R website. You're going to have to find those, but you're going to need the CHD hard drive files for both Rush the Rock as well as 2049, and you're also going to have the zip files or the ROMs for both of those games, and the original Rush has to have those 4 audio chips in it as well, those audio dumps. So if you're missing those, that's not going to work, and there are files out there that do seem to be missing them, so you kind of have to be a little bit particular about where you're getting them from. But honestly, it sounds absolutely incredible as well. So it's your second soundtrack sample. We're going to do 35 seconds, and I'll be right back with some more tips and tricks to make this work on your system. Honestly, sounds every bit as good as the arcade original and maybe even better, but I want you to be aware that this is an inactive development sort of thing, and there's some features that people have been asking about that aren't quite here yet. The number one question I get is, can you play 2-player games via networking? And at this point in time, that is not in this current build, but I know the developer is working on that. Secondarily, you cannot pause the game because it is an arcade game, not a home console game, so pausing isn't in this build, and I'm not sure if it is coming or not. I'll have to check with the dev on that one, but if you do want to quit a race, you just hit escape and you you will get a menu in the game that's going to allow you to change all of your options as well as abort the race back to the main menu. But that does seem to trip people up. Just hit escape and hit quit race and you'll be right back into the actual gameplay and menu selection of what course you want to take on, what car you want to pick, and which game you want to play. And that again is outstanding. So all you need to do to make this work is download that executable I showed you. Make sure you have the appropriate files for both versions of the game, both CHDs as well as ROMs, and the audio files within the Rush the Rock ROM, and then just set everything up how you'd like it to. And as far as what analog values you want to put in, that's 100% subjective. I can't really recommend anything to you because honestly the default values felt exactly like San Francisco Rush should in my opinion, so I didn't touch them whatsoever. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what other features would you love to see come to this. For some strange reason, and I'm sure it wouldn't be fun, I just love to see it, I'd love VR implemented in this just to kind of play around with it, but I don't expect that whatsoever. I just always love trying to run games in VR that were never meant to. But Project R is one of the best ports from an arcade original to PC I've ever seen, not just from fans but from any developer out there who does it for a living. This is a 15 out of 10 project, hell it's a 69 out of 10 project as far as I'm concerned. If you want to play it today, the Project R website's linked down below. When we're done, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.